No, but you said women, women don't want it, right? And I was listening to your book again for the second time the other day, and you talked about how don't move in with an LTR because our competition anxiety relaxes. I'm like, that's exactly what happens in monogamy only. Mm-hmm. Because when a woman, even if you never exercise the right, you just tell your woman, listen, I believe that it is my biblical right to have more than one wife if I so choose. And you never even do it. You just tell her. And she's like, oh, she might not like it, but really, does she like it? Yes. Because what happens is they say they want monogamy, yet 85% of the time when they get into a monogamous only marriage, they file for divorce. It's like you might say you don't want gravity. Like, who would want gravity if someone described gravity to you? Like, what? Some force that makes it harder for me to stand up and walk around? No, let's have weightlessness. But then when you got it, of course, your muscles would deteriorate and everything else. So like women they say they don't want that. No way should a man have the right to polygyny. But actually, because of this competition anxiety and probably a lot of other reasons, they really do want it. It kind of arouses them, actually. Mm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, women want a guy that other women want. I said that in the book. There's a funny bit by Patrice O'Neill, a stand-up comedy. So if you haven't seen his bit on the fishing boat, I would go look it up afterwards, because he sort of talks about how, he would get a fishing boat and he would go fishing and he would catch fish and he would take a picture of it and then he would release it. And it's like, at some point the fish just jumps back on the boat and is like, so what are we? Where do we stand? Sort of thing. And, most guys will get into a relationship at some point with a gal if she pursues him and she's hot and she's, she does nice things for him. He'll go for it. But then she wants you to get rid of the fishing boat. And, the truth of the matter is for her to be interested in you and for her to be attracted to you, you got to kind of smell like fish a little bit. She's got to know that you can still catch fish, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a weird dynamic that women have such a strong demand. And I think it's more cultural and societal and everything that's been hammered in their head through marketing and Hollywood and even most religions today, especially most Western, will sell the narrative of one man, one woman, monogamy into perpetuity. And, like I talked about in the chapter in my book about promiscuous primates, humans really aren't very good at monogamy. We kind of suck at it. Everything that sort of like leads to the constraint of men's options often leads to the pussification of the male. He becomes softer, becomes weaker, becomes less attractive, more agreeable. That's when you start hearing stuff like happy wife, happy life. And then, at some point later on down the road, they stop with the sexual intimacy and she stops, being that interested in him. It's a problem. There's no hard and fast rule. I think it's a good idea if you want to have kids to have the man and the woman, or man and several women. If that's the case that you want to tackle it from, you can certainly have a shitload of kids that way. The guy that's had the most kids has been well over 1,000. The most productive woman, I think it was like in the high 50s or something like that, which is like a ridiculous number as far as the Guinness Book goes. But that's only because she had multiple quadruplets and twins and triplets along the way. She's basically pregnant from start of fertility to the end of her, till she hit like menopause. But men can have far more children with multiple women than a woman can have with multiple men. She can have one baby a year. That's it, basically, in most cases. So yeah, I get it. Like, I see what you're doing and I get what you're, trying to put together, and I wish you the best of luck with it. But it's an uphill battle the way that society constructs religion, and most women out there don't go for it. And then the other problem that you have too is most women suck for wife material. We've talked about this before too. Like, you're going to have a hard time finding a good candidate that can pair bond to you in a monogamous way over a long period of time. Because let's be honest, we're okay with having multiple women, but most like high value guys, we don't want our women to be shared with other guys. Like, that would disgust us. And in many cases, it's grounds for terminating that relationship. You step out, the door's over there, it's unlocked, get out. We'll see you later, sort of thing. That's how a strong guy would typically handle it. But it's, hey man, I want to hear how this adventure unfolds for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned about the Bible, like, you don't know if there's any clear verses. There actually are some verses. The strongest verse for polygyny, I would say, is there in the law of Moses. It says if a man seduces a virgin, the to have sexual relations with her, he must marry her. Okay, so basically you fuck her, she's yours, right? That's what it says.
But what if she's
Break
not a
it,
virgin?
you break it, you
Because
buy
most
it. Well,
women
the
today
thing
aren't,
is,
right?
right, well, not now, right? But the thing is, the law in the West has made it impossible to obey God's law. So people say, "What's against the law?" I'm like, look, you have to obey the law to the point that it doesn't contradict God's law. Yeah, so if they tell you to bow down to a golden idol, I'm going to be like, "Fuck you!" I'm not. I worship God and God alone. I'm not going to obey this law no more than Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego should have bowed down to that idol. But they've made it impossible because it doesn't say if you're not married, you have to. No, it says if you fuck her, you marry her, because now you've lowered her chances of not only finding, back then especially, of finding a husband, but also a woman's chance for divorce goes up exponentially with each partner that she sleeps with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that would fix a lot. So like just that right there. And in addition to, there's many other verses, but God said to David, I gave you your wives. Why'd you go out and take this other dude's wives? I would have given you more if you just asked. And he had 18 wives. God's not going to give you something sinful. So like there's a lot of biblical evidence. Even Jesus compared himself to a polygamist in the parable of the 10 virgins. He basically took 5 virgins into the marriage chamber that were ready. He compared it to when he's coming back, but he wouldn't have done that if it was a sin. So I would actually, I don't know if you would have me on, but I would love, I'm sure there's Christian men that follow you that don't know this. They've never heard it. And I think it would be life-changing for them. They're trying to play this game under rules that have been changed. And we wonder why the church sets men up for, these men fail repeatedly, and we wonder why they fail. Why a Christian woman will go out and date an unbeliever, or she'll go out and she'll fornicate because there's not enough Christian men for them to marry. There's nothing worse for society than a bunch of single women running around that can't find a husband. Because what do? They fornicate, they make babies, fatherless homes, and then the society collapses because you got all the challenges that kids without fathers face. So, yeah, I don't know if you'd have me on, but if you ever wanted to have an interesting discussion, particularly as it pertained to Christians, this topic, because this guy that you had on, Casey, doesn't sound like he was a believer, I'd love to come on and chop it up with you if you wanted to mix it up, but I'll just, throw it out there.
Keep that in mind.
Okay. What do you think about, so I know you're not big on government sanctioned marriage, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, living in a way that looks like marriage to the government is a bad idea. You can be with a woman, you can love her, you can have children, you can be in a long-term relationship, she can be committed to you, and you don't have to be in a state that the government looks at as marriage. So, I have a chapter in my book where I talk about how smart men don't marry anymore. I didn't say smart men don't deal with women, fall in love with women, have relationships, or have children. I just said, don't live in such a way that looks like marriage to the government. Private marriages, there's whatever sanctioned ceremonies the government might view as marriage that you could sort of follow. The problem is, though, is that the government really has thrown a monkey wrench in men and women's relationships, because it's very difficult, especially in the West, like countries like Canada and the US, for example, for men to be the head of the household. Because at the end of the day, if you get married, the government sees it a marriage, right? Like it's registered. And she changes her mind later on down the road. Like you said earlier, women initiate 85% of the divorces. And when you get divorced, because men are typically the breadwinners in the household, because women are hypergamous, they marry up and across on the socioeconomic scale. They don't like to marry losers. They want to marry winners. So the guy's going to earn some good money. She can take a lot of his stuff, alienate him from his children, use them as a bargaining chip to extract child support. Child support's not given to women or mothers based on what the kid needs. It's based on income tables. So that's why you see like famous people or extremely wealthy people spending $50,000, $100,000 a month in child support. There's no child out there that needs $50,000 or $100,000 a month in money. That's all going to her and handbags and shoes and her Range Rover release and all that sort of stuff. It's not going to the kids. So marriage isn't a good idea where the state hates fathers and men. Am I against, the idea of living in a way that is considered marriage? No. I'm against the state getting involved in my life and telling me what I can and can't do and how I'm going to run my life and what happens to my money and what happens to my access to my kids if I have a bunch of kids.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically some kind of ceremony, because Well, this is why this is me operating under polygyny, or the possibility of being in a polygynous marriage, because obviously I can't get married in a government sanctioned wedding to two women, or I'd be whatever they call it, bigamist. I think that's the correct term. So I plan to do some kind of commitment ceremony, covenant ceremony, maybe even have a pastor involved, and then give that woman some kind of protection, contract, whatever, so that she knows that I'm not just trying to, use her up in her youth and then kick her to the curb when I get older, which would be a valid concern, I would imagine. So do you advise your guys on any of that stuff as far as like contracts or any of the technicalities of how to go about that, or not really?
I would lean on Casey Jones for that. He seems to think he has a way where he runs his wives. So he's got 6 wives. They all work. They all earn. He's got a bunch of children. He doesn't give away all the specific details, but he strikes me as the kind of guy that's sort of navigating polygyny in a country that's hostile towards polygyny, right? Because Australia doesn't agree with it. And he's had run-ins with the law. His neighbors have called the authorities on him. They've investigated him. He's dealt with trials and stuff like that. It's a slippery slope, man. It's like, I get, like, the photography looks good. When you look at Casey's Twitter feed, the photography looks good. He's got these beautiful women, objectively, attractive, that are a compliment to his life, that are helping him homestead, with a farm and pigs and building things. And they all have skills. They all have their own room. He spends one night a week with them, Saturday nights for the boys, sort of thing. He seems to have a strategy, but I haven't seen the full strategy, and I don't know of a blueprint that works yet. So I'm not that guy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to check him out.
I'm open to it. I think it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep you posted. I think, I think the majority of men wouldn't choose it. I think they would choose monogamy. But I think that just the fact that they know that they have the right, the prescriptive monogamy is not the problem. Prescriptive monogamy is the problem. When you put laws around it, you create this stigma. Then all the women, like you said, they know they got you by the balls. Yeah. Everybody's seen the meme of the girl on her wedding. The guy's kissing her and it says, "Now I can get fat," right? Fat.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, there's no competition. So we would all I was talking to this football player, ex-Green Bay Packer, KGB, and he's got a couple wives. And he's like, "I would have loved to be the starter with nobody, you're the guy, you're going to play every Sunday. Don't worry. You have nothing to worry about. Nobody's going to take your spot." He's like, "Yeah, my flesh, I would have loved that." But he's like, "I wouldn't have been my best player." He's like, "I know there's somebody coming for my job. They're coming for my spot. And I had to be, that pushed him to be the best possible NFL player he could be." So their competition, yes, it does make us the best version of ourselves. So I think prescriptive monogamy, you lose that.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here. And pinned down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.